being Halloween, it's even more fitting to say that every time they introduce me like that, it sounds like my obituary. It's something that I don't think I'll ever get used to, because they always talk about, your accomplishments, but really you didn't accomplish anything by yourself. We all know that. I know we made a small statement about my wife, but I can't simply express enough gratitude I have for my wife. You want to take a look at someone and you want to see what success can be achieved through that individual. Take a look at his home life. Understand what type of spouse he has, what type of person is encouraging him along the way or her along the way, and you're going to find someone that can be successful at whatever achievement they want to put in front of them. And then you have those that's helped you along the ways too. And when I walked in, I got to see so many friends that I hadn't got to see in a while, but one that I have to say and introduce is my CEO of my company. Now, he's going to get embarrassed that I said this, but when I walked in, he said, "I'm glad to see someone else is in jeans." But I also get asked all the time, how do you do it? How are you able to still run your companies? How are you able to do everything and still go up to Washington, D.C., and then come home and raise 5 kids? It's because I've been blessed with people in my life, and one of them is Robert Morris. Robert, I know you don't want to show your shiny head off, but you're going to have to stand up. This is my CEO, Robert Morris. Robert is not only a CEO, but he's been a friend of mine for a long, long time. You just can't simply, I can't express enough how difficult it is and how difficult it makes life when you get to D.C. and they start telling you what you can and can't do in your personal life, and one of them's how to run a business. And I'm serious. I had to restructure literally my entire business. And when they told me I could no longer actively participate in my company, they told me I could no longer be CEO of my company, I had to make some decisions. And one of those decisions was we started looking around and found out that there was someone that was working for us who was a COO at the time, and he jumped up and has done a remarkable job with all of them. And then I also had Jana Holder. Jana is our marketing director for Mullin Plumbing. And as you guys know, I've been trying to do the advertising for it for quite some time. And I can't be actively involved in that either. In fact, there's very few things I can actively involved in the company anymore. And I had to start looking around for someone, and Jana I had made an acquaintance with when she worked at Channel 8 for so long, and we reached out to her, and she said, absolutely. And with those two things, you got a good support staff and someone's got a vision for the company. It's an easy way to get the company moving forward and keep it healthy and prosperous. And then also we forgot to introduce my chief of staff, Carl Algren. Carl, are you in here? Where you at? Oh, over there. He's got the other shiny head over there. Not there's anything wrong with bald heads. I just don't have one. Yet. It'll. So anyways, being Halloween, I thought about dressing up for you guys. I thought about wearing my costume. I wear in D.C. all the time, my suit. And I thought, why in the world would I want to do that? So I didn't. So I don't really apologize for not having a suit on. I'm very comfortable. And I almost feel sorry for everyone that's having to wear one today, but I do appreciate it. Look, there's a lot of things facing our nation. A lot of difficulties that are ahead, and those of us that are carrying the load are sitting in this room. It takes entrepreneurs, it takes businesses to drive this country, period. In Oklahoma, over 70% of our economy is driven by small businesses. And throughout the country, over 50% of our economy is driven by small businesses. And yet we're the ones taking the blunt of just about everything this president is handing down to us. It's a constant fight, not just simply to stay on the cutting edge of technology and stay one step above your competition, but it's an everyday fight trying to stay up with today's shifting sands that this government is constantly sending us through regulation that we can no longer control. Our biggest threat overnight literally became Washington, D.C. They became our biggest threat to our company. And those of us that are in this room, we do realize that, or you wouldn't be here and you wouldn't be involved. But there's so many else and so many other people out there that they don't realize that. They don't see that. But think of how much time you spend to just comply with mandates and regulations, either on the state level or on the federal level. Think of the resources that you have to spend just to stay up with threats of being fined. Now, I say this all the time, but I do mean it. I don't understand every business out there. I don't understand your business. I understand our businesses very well. But just because I don't understand your business doesn't mean I don't understand business, period. And every day that I'm up there fighting for you, every day that I'm up there and I'm literally getting to grill these individuals that are making these decisions that affect us every single day. Every day that I get to sit up there and at the table with people that are making decisions that affect how we can hire and fire someone, affects what businesses we can get involved in, where our biggest concerns are, making decisions with the EPA and FMCSA, which deals with our heavy trucks on the road. When we start talking to people like the Corps engineers, and we start talking to individuals that literally affect our lives every single day, I get to sit up there and literally be a voice. Not someone that's sit up there with secondhand experience, not someone that you've went and visited with and you sat down and they've nodded their head and you think they understand, and then you walk out of their office and you realize they didn't understand a thing I just said to them. Let me ask you, who's going to fight more? Who's going to fight harder? Someone with first-hand experience or someone with second-hand experience? I have a personal fight in this. It's survival of not just my way of life, but my way of life and every employee that works for me. Look, there's a certain tipping balance to where they can overregulate us. And we understand this administration, their number one goal is to create jobs, so they say. But see, you got a guy up there that's never created a job in their life, and it's almost laughable when you got both sides of the party, Republicans and Democrats, that walk up and down the halls and saying that they're going to create jobs. You sit there and go, really? If you were that smart, then why didn't you do it on your own? All of a sudden, you got elected and you think you know how to create jobs? So the only way they can do that is because they make a rule, and that rule we're supposed to have to hire somebody to comply with, and then they think they're creating jobs. But what they don't realize is it takes right off the top of our overhead. And we're all in business to make a profit. But there's a difference between making a profit and being able to reinvest in your company and making a profit and just maintaining your company. And now listen to what I just said there. There's a difference between being able to reinvest and maintain. Both of them take profits. If you're operating at 10% profit, how much of that are you spending to maintain your company, and how much are you able to invest in your company? Where's the tipping balance? Well, people say profit is profit. No, because the way our taxes are all structured, my CPA has came to me several times and said, you made this much money, you need to owe it. And I go, really? Where did I make it? Well, it must be in your checkbook. Really? No, I reinvested it, but the way the IRS says, we can't deduct all that stuff. So they don't count that as a profit. So we got to look at what the difference is. Can I make a profit at 7% and still reinvest or just maintain? Or is it 6% now that all I can do is maintain? And if we get to that point to where all we're doing is just maintaining our company, what happens? Our company begins to die. And when your company begins to die, you have to make decisions, and those decisions a lot of times reflect your employment and those employed by you. So now all of a sudden we got a administration that has literally begun to tell us how to run our company. We're having to hire people to stay in business because we got to comply, because if we don't comply, they come in and write some ridiculous fine that you cannot even justify where they came up with the fine they gave you. And then you get a great opportunity to complain to their supervisors, and they get a great opportunity to come back into your place of business and write you a whole bunch of tickets that that guy didn't write to begin with. And then they say, oh, by the way, if you will go ahead and pay this now, we'll just give you a deduction of maybe 30% off of it. Or you can fight it and go appeal it to higher up in our agency. That's a racket. It's ridiculous. So our only choice is to comply. And we have to reinvest because none of us want to go out of business. None of us in here just want to maintain our companies. We're entrepreneurs. We want to push. We want to continue to see the company grow and prosper. One of the biggest joys I get to see is when individuals come to work for me, and 10 years down the road, they're still there, and I can see how much their life has improved. I'm not the only business owner out there like that. But the hardest decision is if we're ever faced with the idea of choosing between the employee and our company. Because we understand as business owners, it takes both. But they regulate us to the point to where we have to make a decision, and Obamacare is one of those. Can you imagine being a business owner right now with 53 employees? What are you going to do? You're going to go ahead and pay that new tax? Oh, my Lord, I would imagine most of us are already paying enough tax. So are you going to choose to go ahead and pay an additional tax? Or are you going to lay off 3 employees? What if you're at 57, 61? Where's the cutoff point? And now what if you're the business owner that you have 47 employees, you're busting at the seams, you're wanting to grow, and you have to make that decision? That is absolutely ridiculous, and that's not the country that I grew up in. That's not the country that my granddad went over to Europe and went up on the beaches in Normandy to give us. That's not what the greatest generation that built this country, that's not the sacrifices they made to limit our success and have to make a decision like that. It frustrates me. It burns me. It aggravates me. And then when I get to walk the halls each and every day when I'm up there in D.C., and I see so many people that have the same suit on that I do, they put the same piece of cloth around their neck, and they have all these great words of wisdom, but they're literally a mile long in knowledge and only about an inch deep in actually substance. Meaning they talk a good game, but they really don't understand the ripple effect they cause when they put one regulation on us. You know, it gets to the point to when we're going to have to stand up and say, enough's enough. I reached that point March of 2011 and said, enough is enough. Man, did we have to make some serious decisions? Did we have to make some really hard sacrifices? Absolutely. Is it worth it? You bet. So no, when I'm up there and I'm fighting for my company. I'm also fighting for your company. Here's what I would think success is. If I can take a piece of paper off my desk, and I can take a piece of paper off your desk, and I can allow you to spend that much more time growing your company, doing what becomes natural to you, rather than filling it out to try to be compliant with the same thing that another agency is asking you to do too, but they contradict each other. If I can remove one piece of paper off your desk and allow you to focus on your company and the growth of it, rather than focusing on a regulation that hinders it, then I would deem my day successful. That was perfect timing. I had applause right there, wrote on that. Actually, I haven't even looked at this, but that was still good. Anyways, what I want to stress to you is when you go and you visit an elected official and you walk out of their office and you feel like you've just wasted your time, You didn't. You didn't. Because there's people up there that's pushing their agenda. The only thing is they're not quite as busy as we are because they don't have to focus on growing a company. They think we're all evil. But let me tell you, their voice is being heard. And if you don't take time to step away from your busy life, and you think it's so important that you have to stay there and you can't get away from it, and you don't get up and allow your voice to be heard, whatever you're trying to maintain is being stripped away from you one day at a time up there in Washington, D.C. You have to get as passionate about it as I am. And I know there's many in this room that are. But it takes more than just griping at the TV in your living room. It takes getting up, walking the halls, sitting down with people that you know don't agree with you. But they will listen. They will listen because their number one agenda is to get reelected. And so if they constantly hear from people that are screaming at them, not in an angry, irrational voice, but in a passionate, reasonable voice, if they're able to hear from us and we don't give up because we know right is on our side, we can start making real change. Think of how often you talk with people that agree with you. Think of how often you sit down and you have coffee with those that agree with you. If you only talk to people that agree with you, that's like a pastor that never leaves a sanctuary. You don't make a lot of difference. So I encourage you to stay involved. So anyways, I talked a lot longer, but that had nothing to do with my notes either. Sorry, Angie. Angie wrote me this beautiful speech. I do that to her all the time. I'm sorry. It was really nice. I read it. I promise you. Angie, last night on the plane when you emailed it to me, I sat there and I read all of it and I thought, that is good. I'll use it one of these days. All right, let's get to some questions.
Congressman, good morning. John Weisskiver with Oklahoma Farm Bureau, and we appreciate you taking some questions. We have a lot, so we're going to jump on in.
Good.
The first one, if you could, can you talk a little bit about the debt limit discussion and kind of the process moving forward and what you're anticipating happening after the turn of the year?
Well, this is one point I want to make real quick. Everybody talks about, their spending level. I just want to put something out to you, and I'm using rough numbers here, so I'm not being exact, but 4 years ago, this country was spending $1.4 trillion more than it was bringing in every year. We've whittled that number down to around $680 billion more than we're bringing in. Now, that's still a lot, but we whittled it down quite a bit. And as everybody says, we whittled all the easy stuff. Now we've got to get down to the meat. But we have been cutting our deficit spending down by quite a bit. I mean, we're not quite to $1 trillion, but think about it. We've cut off about $800 billion of spending. Now, some of that was through sequestration, which isn't good, but also we took a lot of it from different agencies, like the IRS. We took 30% of their budget away. I know. And that was a budget before the implementation of Obamacare. There's different agencies that we took things from, but there's other agencies that we shouldn't have took money from, and one of them I feel like is the Department of Defense. I'm sorry, we should have the best and biggest military force in the world. I want them to realize that if they come up against us, we're going to pop them in the mouth hard. I don't want them to think we're an easy target. So, but at the same time, we've got to start now focusing on the hard decisions. And one thing that happened with the government shutdown is that, other than the fact that I feel like I literally took a beating and I couldn't even swing back, it was another something that came out of there that a lot of people may not have realized, that the president for the first time started talking that he wanted to get to regular order. I want to get back to regular order. Regular order in the CR, which we've been operating off, CR is continuous resolution. That means that we continue running government year after year after year after year the same way. And we've been doing that since this president has been elected. But when we get back to a regular order, that means we get to get back into appropriations and we get to start setting budgets, and that's when we really get to start making tough decisions, reforms and programs that need to be reformed. And so when he said he's ready to go to regular order, that means he allowed the Senate for the first time to actually go into budget conference with us. So come December 13th, we're going to start budget talks. And out of those budget talks, I really do have expectations of something coming out of it, because no one up there has an appetite to go through and shut government down again. So we've had long conversations, and we have Congressman Cole that's on those talks with us. We have Paul Ryan that you guys know. He's on those. He's in conference with us. There's people that's going to be sitting down that's going to have true decisions that's got to be made, but they're going to be tough decisions, because at the same time we're going to have to negotiate. And when we start down the road of negotiating, that means we're not going to get everything we want. And I've said this quite often. When you go into a negotiating table, there's two rules that you need to know and that you have to go in there understanding. One, you got to understand what you want. Two, the most important one, is you got to know what you're willing to accept. And so we're not going to get 100% what we want, but if we can just simply get back to regular order, we can start even chipping away at the hard decisions now at bringing the deficit down even farther. I feel like if we can get a budget set, we can become budget neutral and start paying down the deficit in about 9 years. But we're going to be paying down this deficit for the rest of my life.
Thank you, Congressman. Moving on, can you talk a little bit about the current status and just your take on where we are with the Farm Bill?
It's a mess. And Congressman Lucas, everybody in here, the Farm Bill, he is a mess. But Congressman Lucas literally has stood his ground and has fought a wonderful fight, not just for the farmers, but for Oklahoma too. He has been kicked around by both sides. And I commend him at just his composure of how he's had to handle it in closed room meetings and on the House floor. And the Farm Bill is, I'm not going to get into all the details because I'll go on a 10-minute rant on this, but there's real reforms that's going to happen to the SNAP program. And there's real reforms that's happened to the farm program. And what I think will probably end up happening is we'll end up saving somewhere around $20 to $30 billion in this. That's another chunk out of the pie. That's dropping the number down. Now, there's some out there that wants more. There's some out there that want to scrap the whole program. I get that, but we don't live in the perfect world like that. We don't get to make all those decisions. We have to learn how to negotiate. And if we can start chipping down, that's how we got to this point, because we chipped up. We've got to break it down pieces at a time. We can revisit this and get more later. But if we can save $30 billion, that's $30 billion, that's real money that's going to affect the debt that our kids are going to end up paying off on these days. Got to turn it on. It works.
I don't have control of it.
Oh, okay.
Thank you. Which is driving me crazy. But anyway, moving on, Congressman, can you talk just briefly about an update on the Water Resources Development Act?
One WRDA. By the way, people want to know, what does WRDA stand for? It's Water Resource Reform. Oh, hold on a second. How did I mess up on that? Development Act. Yeah, Water Resource Reform Development Act. That extra R throws me off. What's important about that with Oklahoma is that we have the navigational system that runs up and down, which makes us, we're not landlocked anymore, and it gives us 3 modes of transportation. We're able to take rail, road, and water. But we have to fight the Corps all the time, and the Corps actually works with us, but they have to fight Congress all the time. And just on our navigational channel, there's $100 million worth of backlogs. $100 million worth of backlogs. There's 20 which come up to around $63 billion of critical backlogs. The Corps engineer says there's a 50-50 chance, that it can fail. Now, if you look at just between Muskogee and Catoosa, there's 53 miles of waterway there. There's $5 billion worth of investments that industries have invested because of that navigational channel. There's 8,000 jobs that depend on that every day. And if one lock goes down, that's going to affect Oklahoma at $2 million a day. Now, how would you like to be one of those companies that your lifeline is that navigational channel? You've invested $5 billion on that navigational channel, and the Corps, the people that are responsible for it, says, I can't do anything about it. But by the way, you got a 50-50 chance that this thing could go down. And when it does go down, by the way, we don't have a clue how long it's going to take to put it back up. Now, is that going to encourage people to come in and invest in a resource we have in Oklahoma? No. In fact, I commend those that was willing to take that risk the way that it is. So with the WRDA bill, we got very involved in it. I mean, very involved in it. And we had some language that was put into it that directly affects Oklahoma. Those $63 million, considering it critical, when this comes out of conference, we're going to be able to start those projects immediately. As the president says, shovel-ready jobs. Well, we're ready to go. And when it gets approved, which it will, because the way it passed through Congress, 417 to 3, which is unbelievable. It's going to go through Congress. It's going to go through conference. We're going to come out and we're going to put people to work, and those people that invested on our navigational system is going to have a confidence behind it to be able to reinvest more.
Thank you. Can you talk just briefly from a funding standpoint and over long-term funding solutions on our infrastructure needs here, both locally and within the state?
You talking about with transportation?
Yes.
Transportation is obviously the board that I sat on. We just got done finishing the 21st Century panel, which is a panel of 11 people. I was the only freshman chose to be on the panel, but I was the only one on the panel that actually had real business experience. And I know that sounds funny, but that was the only reason why we chose to be on the panel. We had I don't know this is a bad word, but I don't know whether, I don't have my thesaurus with me to get a better one, but we had a lobby to get on it. I mean, we had to really push to be on that, but we wanted on it. And so as we pushed to get on this panel, we were going from literally coast to coast. About every weekend since April, I had an assignment to do something, and I had to travel someplace. And my wife, once again, raising 5 kids at home by herself, she was very nice to me and kind, and I sent her a lot of flowers and told her I loved her a lot. But I understand the need of reinvesting in a company. And our country has to operate like a company. We're in competition with other countries around the world. And if we don't reinvest in our infrastructure, then the only thing we begin to do is maintain. And we can make we can draw the line between the two, the comparison between the two. So as I was traveling around, I understood that, man, we've got a great infrastructure, but we've abused it. Our interstates in most parts across the country are running over 30% capacity. What they were originally designed for, we're pushing them by 30%. Our rail, they're literally pushed to the point of, they're pushed to the point where literally they're having to stop commerce from going to point A to point B because they're so jam-packed. Our ports, you know, 43% of all goods that are imported inside the United States comes through 2 ports right beside each other in Los Angeles. The traffic jam is unbelievable. And we have to realize we've got to reinvest, but this is what people don't want to talk about. Revenue. Increase revenue. I'm sorry, but we're going to have to invest in our infrastructure, and in doing so, we're going to have to increase revenue. We're going to have to. There's not enough money there. We're going to have to figure out a way to get those people that are driving the CNG vehicles, which we have trucks that are CNG. Robert actually drives a truck that's CNG. But at the same time, they're not paying anything for the infrastructure that they're running on. Electric vehicles, they're not paying anything to run up and down the roads. Those of us that are running a diesel truck like I do, or those of us that are driving a gasoline vehicle, we're paying it. But with the new fuel efficiency standards and with no increase since the middle 90s on our tax for it, the numbers have gone down. So we're going to have to find a unique way to find revenue for it, and our office has took on this challenge. That is a project that our office has been working on. We've been working with transportation and infrastructure. We're not ready to tell you exactly what it is yet, but it's a complete out-of-the-box approach. But that's what we do in business every day. We think outside the box. We don't want to do just exactly what our competition is doing. We're going to do what they do plus something else. And that's one of those things that we have to do. We have to find a way to invest in it. And when we do, once again, we're going to put people to work, but also you're going to see an explosion of what can happen when you reinvest in your country.
Thank you, Congressman. Can you talk just and give a little bit of your perspective and maybe a status on where things are in terms of the Marketplace Fairness Act?
Dead on arrival. I hate to say that because we need it. I mean, and I know there's a lot of people shifting in your seats right now. I heard everybody start clearing their throats, but I could sit up here and give you a whole bunch of bull if you want me to. That's just not what I do very well. Although I do wear boots, so I don't get my ankles dirty. That's more for D.C. though. The Market Fairness Act is a lot of people start running out and saying it's a tax. It's one of those revenue things that everybody wants to run away from. But it's really not a new tax. In Oklahoma, it actually exists. We just don't do a good job to enforce it, and it's hard to enforce it. And I don't want to have you show hands right now, but think about it. When you buy that thing online, do you write it down and claim it later and pay taxes on it? You're supposed to in Oklahoma. Did you guys know that? Now it's quiet. So it's not a new tax, but there has to be an enforcement of it. You look at the small towns which I represent. I mean, I represent all of rural Oklahoma, basically, on the eastern side of it. Think of these small towns now that they don't have any sales tax really coming into them anymore. Muskogee, I was talking to the mayor there, and we were Mayor Coburn, and we were talking a little bit about the source that they lose, and it was somewhere in I'm going to mess this number up, but it was somewhere around $9 million a year that they lose from sales tax. And I know tax is a dirty word, but let me tell you, if you're living someplace, you've got to invest in it too. It goes to our schools. It goes to our roads. It goes to what makes us proud to live in that community. But since everybody's so afraid of it, it's going to go nowhere. Not anytime soon. It's going to go nowhere.
Well, we certainly appreciate your time. We know that you've got a lot of things still today to jump in after this. I've got one more question for you. And
Don't set me up that way. I thought I was done. I already turned my brain off now.
Well, just one more.
Okay.
And I could ask you, there's a great question here about plumbing and septic systems, but I don't think...
That I could knock home.
Okay, well, I think we'll stay on focus. This one's kind of stood out. If you could talk about any good news, something you're feeling good about moving forward here for the next year or two.
My wife loves me. My kids love me. Robert, I think, loves me some days. I'm a type of guy that my glass is always half full. You have to set the tone. I tell our leaders in our companies all the time, if you're having a bad day, leave. That doesn't mean you go play golf. Just leave. Go out in the field, work. Because you set the tone. You set the tone of those that work for you. And I feel like I have to set the tone too, so I'm always a very optimistic guy. There's days that I'm not, don't get me wrong. There was days during the shutdown I wasn't optimistic at all. But if you look forward to what we can accomplish, you just got to look back at what we already did accomplish. Think of where we came from in this country. You're going to tell me we can't do it again? You got those people up there that tell me all the time, we're too far gone. Get away from me. I don't want to hear you. I don't believe that. What you're saying is that you gave up. And if you're one of those people in this room, I'm sorry to offend you, but listen to what I'm saying. If you think we're too gone, that means you've already rode up the white flag and surrendered. I haven't. And I won't be one of those guys that get up here and say that there's nothing we can't do. I'm one of these guys that's going to say, if you want it bad enough, you can accomplish anything. Don't tell me we can't do something. Don't tell me I can't do it. Now, that whole theory has put me in the emergency room a few times. But at the same time, if there's a challenge in front of me, and I know it has to be dealt with, you're going to have to accomplish it. You run up to a wall, a lot of people stop. But you didn't run into a square room, you ran into a wall. There's still options. You can go to your right, you can go to your left, you can grab a shovel, you can dig underneath it, or you can get a ladder, you can go over it. But you can accomplish it. It's just how hard are you willing to fight? And this country is one of those things that I'm willing to fight for. And what you see on TV, you see these people up there and they're bickering, pop, 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 pop. I don't care if it's Fox News or if it's MSNBC. Realize a lot of those people up there are trying to get ratings. That doesn't represent the halls of Congress. You start looking and you see how many people are on those same shows over and over and over again. It's because they make good TV. They don't speak for all of us. So don't believe everything that you see on those news channels. Instead, come up there and run around with me for a day. Run around me for 2 days. Yeah, you're going to be disappointed, but you're also going to meet a lot of people that are up there fighting the same fight that I am, that have the same passion that I have. And when you get to meet them, you'll realize, yeah, we can get this thing fixed. And we will. We'll get this thing fixed. So thank you for your time. Thank you so much for the opportunity to be here.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Good job.